Hey, it's Mike Murphy, host of Murphy Unplugged, and you're listening to the 360 Entrepreneur with Jan Ilonga.
This is episode 195, and today we talk about experimentation and getting uncomfortable. Here we go.
Welcome to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast, the show for entrepreneurs and small business owners who dream big and want to do bigger. Join some of the world's top entrepreneurs, internet marketers, and best-selling authors as they share their inspiring stories, their struggles, and give actionable tips that will help you build, grow, and promote your online business. Here's your host, Yanni Lunga.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to episode 195. The last episode of the month here. Yanni Lunga coming to you all the way from Helsinki, Finland. And today, as the title suggests, we get uncomfortable. We talk about uncertainty. We talk about stepping outside of your comfort zone. We're going to wear those glasses when we discuss podcasting, Instagram marketing, and other entrepreneurial things with today's guest expert, Mike Murphy. The show notes page is over at yannilunga.com/episode 195. All right, without further ado, here is the interview with Mike Murphy from mikemurphy.co. In today's episode, we are joined by somebody who I connected with recently, a couple of months ago, and I've become a big fan of what he does. And you're going to hear more about what he actually does in a second. He's a one-band man, a podcaster, and tutorial maker. He's the host of Mike Murphy Unplugged, show that has every episode focus on a very specific topic, from starting a business to recording on the go and getting started with Facebook Live. I'm so excited to welcome on the show Mike Murphy. Mike, how's it going?
It is going great, and I am excited to be here.
Likewise. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you and I originally connected on Instagram. Can it be?
I believe it was Instagram. I have actually been familiar with your work. I'm sure you were not mine originally, but yeah, I've sort of been following you in the podcast space and the summit last year. So you were definitely someone that I knew about. But I think we connected on Instagram. I might have made a comment or something in one of your posts.
Yeah, I think it was on one of the posts about like favorite podcasts or something like that. I think it was. And you have been doing something interesting with Instagram that I really want to ask you. But before we go there, obviously I want to say thank you for following what I do. And I said, you are a one-band man, you're a podcaster, you do tutorials, and you're the host of your show, Mike Murphy Unplugged. And I think the first question, Mike, I have to ask you is, could you tell everybody here a little bit more of the story behind Mike Murphy Unplugged? How did you come up with the idea and then turn that idea into what is today your show?
Absolutely. I've always had a thing for audio and recording. Like, I've never been serious about it, but I've always been a big audio person, whatnot. And I also am one of those people that I study way too much. I learn way too much. The past 9 years or so, I've been working as a studio manager in a photography studio. And my job was literally to do everything, the business, the design, the web design, everything. So I was like a kid in a candy store, though, because I had to learn how to do so many things because it was basically me and the photographer. And so she just basically said, do whatever, So I just kept learning and learning. I mean, I was always taking tutorials, classes online because I loved it. And then I realized that I had way too much stuff in my head. And I've always been the person that people come to, like, how do I do this? Or how do I get this done? And I just love sharing that stuff and little things, So I basically decided I needed to make a podcast. I was starting an online business. I knew that I really wanted to do something online. And so I basically just said, I need to get this out there. A podcast is perfect medium for me because I love playing with the audio. I love, all the stuff about it. And so I just decided to create this podcast that was going to be my journey as a one-man band and really just show people, because I get frustrated when people are talking about things, they don't get specific, or they don't really show me that one little step that is probably the most important thing that nobody talks
Right.
about, or, pricing. How do you price something? Or how do you can talk about general concept. And I just wanted to get real detailed on the stuff that I'm doing and share what I'm doing. So that's where it came about. It was a real natural fit for me to be a solo show. I'm a little introverted for sure. And having the solo podcast was just a perfect fit for me. So that's where it came about. And I just keep chugging along as I'm doing stuff, as I'm learning things, as I get excited, I share.
I love it, Mike. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And I think you're on point that especially when it comes to today's way of learning. So if we think about the internet, there are so many different ways we can learn something. Obviously, that's a very good thing, but that sometimes it's also a problem because we may come across content, whether it's a podcast, a book, video, whatever really, where the person doesn't give specific advice or gives advice just for the sake of giving advice. So may not even be an advice based on his or her opinion or based on let's say a book a person has read, something like that. And you said it, you're an introvert person and you have a solo podcast. And I have to tell you, Mike, I've heard of podcasts, I heard of different stories, but your podcast, not only it's interesting for the content, but it's also interesting for some of the places you've recorded it at. So can you share, I know you have this also on your site and I'll link to that and everything else we cover in the show notes. Can you share with everybody a couple of the, let's call them, the most colorful places you've recorded your podcast from?
Well, I think most people record, I did it on an airboat in the Everglades. I think that's a pretty common place to record a podcast. That kind of turned into a disaster. It was very loud, the generators. I've done on a beach, a nude beach in San Francisco.
Right.
That might be one of the colorful places you're talking about. If you go on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, there's a beach down there that has like a nude beach part, but it's actually a really great perspective of the bridge itself. So I love it down there to take photos. Yeah, and I've done a few on the beach. I live about 2 blocks from the beach here in Naples, Florida. So I've done a few on the beach. My whole point was really, well, one, I love to push the limits of creating stuff. So I did stuff that, basically I try to dispel any of the myths that people get scared about, recording on traveling or whatnot. You hear a lot of different takes. And so in order for me to really share and teach, I do it. So I did it in places that nobody would do. Like nobody would record a podcast on a beach. A couple of them came out fine. So I'm saying, well, and I really didn't go crazy. I kept it very minimal. So I did it trying to say okay, you don't have to bring a portable soundproof room with you. The Everglades was a disaster just because it was too loud, but it could have been fine. I had the equipment to do it just fine. And again, it was very minimal. So I like to push the limits of what I'm doing and really to share it like that.
No, I love it. And thank you for sharing. Some of the places, as I said, were really funny to say the least. And I mainly record at home. At least this show, I've recorded my music business podcast at some festivals. So I've recorded a bit on the go as well. But I can tell you, never surrounded by alligators, never at a nudist beach. And I like the idea or what you said, Mike, because you said it, I just try things out. When I checked your show, Mike Murphy Unplugged, and we were talking about this also before we started recording, what I really like about it is that each episode in itself could be a sort of mini workshop or an immersion into a specific topic, but at the same time, your overall bigger picture is there. There is a fil rouge, there is a thread in between every piece of the puzzle. And I want to ask you for something, because obviously when we are at the beginning of a year, that's when people usually make all their resolutions and they say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And, our resolution could be, all right, this is the year I'm going to start a podcast or whatever. So the first thing I have to ask you, Mike, is how does it feel to get outside of one's comfort zone? Because, you have really taken the plunge with many different things. You have started a podcast. You have done something on Instagram that we'll cover in a moment. You have been really also taking writing challenges where you've been creating content for places like Medium on a regular basis. So what would you say that for you as a person and for what you're trying to do in your journey does putting yourself outside of your comfort zone?
Yeah, the comfort zone talk is one of those things that you can go up and down. I can go up and down on. I think it's important to push yourself. I don't like to get outside of my comfort zone if it's just the sake of doing it,
Right.
and that's sake. But there are people who just say, just do something extreme. I'm very calculated or strategic with how I think of things, but I also, if somebody was looking at me, they probably would think that I was way out of my comfort zone on a lot of the things I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for people, I like to tell people by pushing their comfort zone is doing more than they're think they're capable of, is something that I'm really doing to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I put these goals on myself. They're totally self-inflicted, but I know that long picture, by doing it every day, by doing more and more stuff, it is hard. It's hard for me to do. My comfort zone would be to probably, just play around with my camera and audio equipment and relax.
Mm-hmm.
So that comfort zone to me, or pushing myself out of it, I guess, is really by just doing way more than I think is possible to do. I'm not trying to make myself suffer. I'm trying to find...
No, of course, yeah.
I'm trying to find that thing that I really cannot stop doing, or that I can't get enough of. And, I do think that you're definitely going to leave your comfort zone exploring that and trying to find it. And that's what I've been doing. I mean, my comfort zone was definitely working in, kind of being part of a team and, pushing people along. But now that I'm doing stuff on my own and really going for it, I'm working hard at everything, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I am out of my comfort zone on some levels, but yet I feel perfectly like I know where I'm going. So it's a good feeling.
Well, I think you touch upon a very good point, Mike, because you said, obviously, we're not talking about going outside of one's comfort zone just for the sake of doing it. But you said it at the same time, when we are really strategic and it's something that we do over time on a regular basis, then we are going to see the benefits. And I'm sure that you may have kind of second guessed yourself when you were thinking about starting a podcast. I know I did that for millions of reasons, but here we are, both have been podcasting. And I know that you've been podcasting for a little over a year. And you also had an article in a podcast episode where you talked about lessons you learned from a year of podcasting. So Mike, for everybody who's here with you and I, is there somebody who said to himself or herself, this year is going to be my year for podcasting. I'm gonna finally take action, take the steps and launch my podcast. Do you have any advice based on some of the things you have learned, on some of the things to think about and do?
Yeah, and whenever anyone asks me that question or tells me that they're thinking about it, I really focus on can you handle it? Or are you aware of really how much work is involved? Because it seems really easy to say, my podcast is never longer than 17 minutes, usually 15-ish. Okay, I mean, how hard can it possibly be to do 1 week of 15 minutes of quick audio, But it's amazing. As soon as you're done with one, it feels like the next one is right behind it, So if you're thinking of doing it, I think it's the greatest thing ever for so many reasons. I have grown as a person and a teacher and a creator on so many levels, and it's strictly because of my podcast. Because it's that one thing that you have to show up for every single week. It's a big deal. It's a big commitment. And I think having that big commitment is, tough for people, and you have to be realistic about it. Can you really do it? But the fact of the matter is, if you try and it becomes too much, trying is something too, So, it's not I wouldn't say don't do it if you are absolutely not certain you can do it. But I do think you have to be realistic, and this is kind of cliche, but if you don't really love what you're doing about the topic, I don't think you could last very long. If you're just doing an interview show because you think that's going to be the easiest thing, it's going to not be, So I didn't know exactly what my podcast was about. I broke all the rules and niches and all that when I started, and I still do with, because I am figuring stuff out right along with everybody. But if I had waited until I had that perfect formula, I'd still be without a podcast today. My final advice, if you're thinking about it and you have kind of a passion, something that you need to say, just go for it. And if you didn't do it, it's not going to be the end of the world. And you maybe a year later you find out, oh my God, I got this idea I have to do, so be realistic about it. It is a lot of work, but it's really, really a powerful medium, and it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I echo your words, Mike. Obviously, as a podcaster myself, I do love it. But what I really liked about what you just said is that with the type of question I asked you, there are many different ways you could have gone with. You could have talked about the gear, you could have talked about this and that, but you talked about something that at the end of the day, it's really the foundation, and is first of all asking oneself if you have what it takes to be a podcaster, meaning to be aware of the fact that even if you plan to release an episode that is only 15 minutes long once a week, there is a lot more that happens behind the scenes. You have to plan the content, you have to edit, you have to think about how to connect the dots. There are many different things to think about. So what you as the listener may see as 15 minutes simply because you listen to a 50-minute long audio is actually can even be hours of work that is spent there. And you also talked about the importance of being passionate about one wants to podcast about. And I think that's the key. That's really the key, because if we want to start an interview, you made a great example. And you said, if you want to start an interview-based podcast, just because everybody's doing it, you won't go very far. And you said, Mike, that you broke all the rules. And actually, I applaud you for that. But then I also contradict you in the sense that I don't really know what the rules of podcasting are. I know what some people think the rules are. But, I really think that, and I'm a person who also, similarly to what you do, Mike, I like to experiment with different things and then show, what the outcome was. We talked a little bit about podcasting. So we said you have your show, Mike Murphy Unplugged, and your site is mikemurphy.co. And we said that you and I met on Instagram. And one of the things you did, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, about this, but I think that also took you a bit outside of your comfort zone, was to post an Instagram image every day for 1 year, no exceptions, every single day. And your Instagram account as well as the Twitter page are both at Mike Unplugged. How that became an idea, and then what are some of the things you have learned by playing around with Instagram, experimenting for a year in a row?
Right. Well, it came about, again, I have sort of this deep hobby of being a photographer. I'm not a professional photographer, videographer. I just have always had a camera, and that's something that I work in a lot. So taking photographs, I immediately took to Instagram. I was not really a social media, heavy user before I started kind of my podcast and that. And Instagram was like an instant fit just because I like the visuals. And so I started about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I was just posting every day. And then I got to be a month, and I'm kind of one of those people. I don't really push. I'm not really big on these like concrete goals that I have to, do. But I am one of those people though. If I start doing it, I'll say, well, try another month or try another, so I didn't set out with this goal of 365 days. It just got to be about a month, and then 2 months. And then I said, well, I'm not stopping now. So I just kept posting. And what I learned, it's like podcasting. It's harder than you think to post every day, because I was taking pictures of gear. I wanted people to recognize me, and I was building a brand based around knowing my stuff, knowing my tools. I teach people tools, not just gear, but like how to make sense of it all. So I started taking pictures of gear, and I probably got 2 months into it and realized, well, I photographed pretty much, the same microphone
everything
20 times. And, so that is where a challenge became, taking pictures of stuff when you've already gone through your whole inventory, like in the first 3 weeks. So what it really, I think I'm a good problem solver, and I think creativity in design is all about problem solving. And what this did, basically, I would wake up or I would go and I just say, how are you going to make it work? How are you going to get a post today? Or how are you going to create something? And so there was just me just sort of figuring out different ways or different looks and different things. And I think that process of doing it every day just made me stronger and made me more confident of my ability to keep pushing forward. Like I knew that if I kept doing stuff every day, even simple, like Instagram was the simple version for me because I knew it was just small content. Like it wasn't writing a big article. It was just something I could do every day. And I knew that was going to benefit me, like mentally, my brand, everything. And it did. It made a huge impact on me. It didn't make my business successful, necessarily. It just made me so much stronger and on so many levels personally. And I think people respond to it because I'm doing things that are a little bit different, I think. So yeah, Instagram has been a big one of those things that I just gravitated to right from the beginning, and I'm still going. I don't know if I'll make it 2 years, but that's not a goal. But I still haven't broken my streak yet. So, and I'm making it harder on myself. Yeah, I'm making it a lot harder on myself. I'm teaching myself After Effects, and it's making videos every day is going to be hard. So I'm not committing to that yet, but we'll see.
I'm curious, Mike, what have you learned? I mean, you said obviously when it comes to the content creation part, it gets really tough when one feels, okay, what do I post about today? But when it comes to the platform itself, maybe, engagement or connecting with others, things like that, is there something that you have learned that maybe surprised you or something, that you learned by consistently not only posting, but being active on Instagram every day?
Yeah, I think there's some people who like the consistency. I've learned that. Like there are people who don't have any interest in what I'm posting, but sort of stay in touch with me because they feel a connection. Like I think that's a cool part of social media. Like it doesn't really matter what the content is a lot of times if people feel some sort of connection. Every post I do, I try to have it's just my nature, but I just try to put some part of me and some lesson and some little tip that might be hidden or it might be something. But I think people are like that. They like that I show up every day. Like it makes them feel good, which surprised me because I was just thinking people would like the visuals or, at first. In terms of engagement, one of my weak areas for sure, I end up getting so busy and like everybody else and doing your own thing and posting that, I probably could be better at actively, trying to start conversations. But I do go out of my way every day to make sure that if I like what people are doing, I really try to say, hey, your stuff's great or whatever. And it surprises me the lack of response I get, to be honest with you, on some levels. And then some people will tell you their life story. And, like there are a lot of people who I really gone out of my way to like comment on, and I don't get anything back. And then there's other people. What's funny is the people who have bigger names or people who I think have a bigger platform are always the first to respond. It seems to be like, it is funny, like the people I don't expect to respond, I'll get a response from. And then others, I'll say, well, I don't take it personally, but I just, I don't get super, like, I can't say that I don't know. I don't know what people are, I don't get as much engagement as I would like because I just, I would like to know, do you want more? Do you like it? What, but anytime I want engagement, it's really just, I'm just so determined to try to find something that's helping people or that I think is, people are liking. And if you don't know, you're just kind of like, well, I'll just keep going. And,
All right.
So I think that's where engagement, I don't need feedback. I'm not like somebody that requires or cares about like, do you like it? Do you not like it? Like I care, like, do you want to see more? Like, is this helping you? Is this stuff you like? But I do get a lot of people who say like, I'll put like a tiny little tip and they'll say that really helped. Thanks. And that is awesome to me.
And I think this last point you touched on, Mike, I think it's important because sometimes we are so hanged up with where we are as anything, whether it's a podcaster, author, entrepreneur, whatever, that we tend to forget that some of the things we consider simple can be very useful for others. And there is this quote by Derek Sivers, which I love. And I think he says, which is ordinary to you can be extraordinary to somebody else. And I really do believe in that. And sometimes, still to this day, sometimes I'm amazed when I say so. Similarly to what you do on Instagram, I may reply to a Facebook comment or whatever with a tip that I really consider obvious. And the person's like, oh, thank you so much. I've never thought about this. And that's where the magic happens. And Mike, with you here in this conversation, we covered the audio dimension with podcasts. We talked a little bit visuals with Instagram. And I want to ask you a question about medium.com. You also regularly, not only podcast, not only post on Instagram, but you also write on a regular basis. You publish on medium.com. So the question I have for you is, what do you think writing? I mean, I'm not saying that, it's something that you do every single day. It's something that you've been doing, compared to other people on a more regular basis. What would you say writing can do for somebody who has a podcast? Do you think it's important for somebody who's really spending a lot of time in front of a microphone to also carve out some time to write? Or
I do. I mean, I was an English major in college, but I always had this love-hate with writing. It's something that I always was pretty good at. I use Medium, and I've probably said it, Medium embarrasses me if I was ever read it back, because I use it as this dumping ground for just kind of it's pretty random for me. And I sort of did that on purpose. The site itself, I absolutely love Medium because it feels like you can just write whatever. But right. I'm not so random. I try to have a point. But where my podcast, as you mentioned, is like mini workshops. So I write my podcast out. So the way I'm thinking about seeing it as a lesson, I think Medium or writing is the same thing. In fact, I really should be doing more. I think it's really important for podcasters. You're talking about a lot of stuff and it seems obvious to you, or it seems easy for you to understand, but people forget about it afterwards. And by having it written, or you're probably going to say it in a different way also. You're probably going to cover the main things. And for the people who heard it and got it, great. And then the people who read it are going to get that much more advantage. So I actually am trying to take all of my old podcasts and turn them into more written content. But, until there's more hours in the day, I feel like I'm, everybody has that.
There is so much you can do.
Yeah. As much as I feel like I do, I still feel like I do nothing, not nearly enough of what I'm trying to do. And I think we all suffer from that, if I put all the ideas in my head out there, it would, I definitely couldn't do it myself. But yeah, I think writing, it's just another, I have a creative 10, but I think it's just another creative muscle that you need to work on. And I think it all goes, you're 360. It's all part of the package, and I think writing is it's tough. It's a tough discipline because it takes time and it takes,
right.
But I think when you start doing it, it pays off in the long run. I struggle with it too. I struggle with the act of writing.
Right.
But yet when I'm done with it, it's that was good.
It was worth it.
Yeah. So I think it's all about for me, I'm building a body of work is the way I look at it. The podcast is just one thing of this whole thing that I'm trying to accomplish. And I think if you have a little bit of everything, you really become a more, people like to learn in different ways. So by having it having it on many different platforms, and I'm not saying to do everything by any means, but if it makes sense for you to share it written, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. Thank you, Mike, for touching on that, because you said it. People learn in different ways. So if we have the time and we think about how we can strategically maybe even repurpose some of the content we already have or we already planned for different platforms. It can be written, it can be for something that goes more in the visual direction. Definitely is going to help us increase the share of our message and the impact of our message without a doubt. And Mike, this has been a fun conversation. I said it, your site is mikemurphy.co. You are on Twitter, you're on Instagram at Mike Unplugged. And the final question I want to ask you is, obviously, I know that a year is a long time and there are many different things, but is there something for 2017 that you said to yourself, okay, I really will take the plunge on it? Is there something that comes to mind?
I am building a new website that's very resource heavy, and it's really taking all the tools and all the stuff I use. I'm trying to put it into one coherent place, kind of a one-stop shop for podcasters. I've started it, but I need to write more. I need to write more content. I just wanted to find a place that people were going to get my perspective on the whole picture. I just see people needing to do a lot of things today, and I just happen to think like that's normal. Like I just do it all, and I don't do it all, but I mean, like I love to study it all. So this new site is started, but 2017, I really want to make it a focus of mine. I really want the blog to be like, I'm trying to create something that is living and, that's going to be a big deal. Like I would actually love to just maintain this blog as like my main education site, but I'm chipping away at it now, but I feel like I have a ton to do. And that is a focus for me on 2017 to just really kind of go in all on what I'm trying to accomplish. I feel like I've been laying the foundation for a while, but it's time to really buckle down.
I love it. Thank you, Mike, for taking a moment and sharing that with us. So the best way to keep in touch with Mike, I mean, you heard it, he's on Twitter and Instagram at Mike Unplugged, but there are two ways that are even better to connect with him. One is to go on his site, mikemurphy.co, and you can join his newsletter and become part of the band. And then make sure to find his show also on the site, and you can start to listen to the entire catalog of episodes of Mike Murphy Unplugged. And don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the shows Mike Murphy publishes. Mike, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your stories, your thoughts, and for telling us a little bit more about some of the things you do and for sharing some advice on really taking the plunge. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure was all mine. I appreciate it, Jan.
All right, we are back. Thank you, Mike, again for everything you shared here with us. It was a very interesting conversation, and you heard it. Mike made it crystal clear. It's not only about getting uncomfortable, but it's about doing that, not being afraid to experiment, and doing things consistently. He mentioned podcasting, he mentioned Medium, he mentioned posting every day for a year on Instagram. That's not something easy to do, but he said by stepping outside of his comfort zone, by doing that consistently, creating content consistently, great things have started to happen. Once again, the show notes page for today's episode is over at janilunga.com/episode 195. This is it for today. Make sure to come back next week. Next week is a very exciting episode because we're going to talk about a brand new way to market your podcast.
Thank you for listening to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. For more tips and tools, head over to www.janilunga.com.